CCM is holding our 5th annual Representation Matters 2-day training in collaboration with the Campaign School at Yale University on March 1st and March 8th. In just the first 5 years, we have seen hundreds of interested individuals get tools to help them on their journey to local elected office. Today, we are joined by Danbury Mayor Roberto Alves to talk about why representation matters and how the program is successful at giving tools to candidates at all levels. If you want to register for Representation Matters, our free virtual 2-day training is open to everyone. Just visit us at ccm-ct.org for more information. Municipal Voice is the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities podcast in collaboration with WNHH LP 103.5 FM. I'm your host, Matt Ford. As always, be sure to give us a like and let us know what you're thinking in the comments. CCM's Municipal Voice podcast continues to present a key forum on important state-local issues. The views expressed do not necessarily reflect the consensus views of CCM or member municipal leaders. Mayor, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, good morning. Good afternoon. How are you?
Doing good. So, the reason we're talking to you today is because we're getting really excited for our 5th year of Representation Matters. And in previous years, you've worked with us on it and participated, which has been great. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you first, came into contact with the campaign school at Yale?
Yeah, no problem at all. So I am Roberto Alves. I'm the mayor of the city of Danbury, and I'm so proud to be the mayor here. We're in Connecticut's 7th largest city. It's been my hometown since I was 5 years old, pretty much almost all I know. But I'm also, have the privilege of being the chairman of the Connecticut Democratic Party. So wear a few hats here, and I got involved. And the story's been out for a while, right? Just kind of as an activist. Just sitting there for my schools. And I know activist sometimes has a definition some people don't like, but I was just active in my community.
Yeah.
I was at Board of Education meetings. I was at city council meetings. I was just there to speak up for some of the things I was seeing as my children were about to go into the school. I was on our DTC. I was just heavily involved. And how I got involved with CCMs and the Yale school there was really for this. I was invited to speak, and I want to say 2 years ago now, for the first time, and I've done it every year since. It was incredible. I had such a blast talking about my experience, how it was like getting into politics from my perspective as somebody who grew up. My parents came here from Brazil when I was 5 years old. I grew up undocumented. I got legalized in my early 20s, got my citizenship in 2017, ran for office that year. So there are some challenges, right? And a new candidate as a new citizen. But I've always had such a great support system around me from my team and my family. And this group here has just fit right into everything else I've done in life and politically as I advocate for my city. It's just been such a great fit. I love to see it grow every year. And I love that I got invited to be a part of it this year. I was like always wondering, I wonder if they're going to call me again.
Yeah.
But such a good time.
No, definitely. So, part of the reason we do this program is to give individuals the tools for success. Can you tell when someone has the it factor, when someone has what it takes or does it for office, or is it just skills that you learn?
I think a little bit of both. I think what you can do is find somebody who's maybe a little nervous and where some people say they'll have that it factor. And you can teach them and they can work and they can be great candidates. They can be great parts of the team. And then every once in a while, there's always those candidates or those people that have whatever it is, right? You can see the dynamic nature. But then there's things that they need to polish off and work on and learn. And the campaign school is so important when it comes to that. I've had so many friends and folks from the local area that have gone through that and who have taught and been, collaborators with the campaign school. So I see its value.
Definitely. When people talk about it and maybe are intimidated by the idea of doing this running for office, one thing we hear is people talking about, fundraising, knocking on doors, making calls, and being nervous about that. What makes it so difficult for people, even people who might make great politicians? Is there ways around fundraising, or is it just something you got to learn how to do?
A little bit of both. Right? Listen, I'm one that's been very adamant personally that My wife is a million times smarter than I will ever be. And I wish that she would run for office. I think she is just incredibly brilliant. We kind of, I got into this because I was going to meetings with her. We were going things, and we both looked at each other and said, oh, we were so frustrated with what we were seeing. We go, one of us has got to run. She looks over at me and she goes, I became an accountant for a reason. I don't want to deal with people, right? You go ahead and do it. But if I can one day find out how to have her run for office, then I'm gonna stop running. I'm gonna support her campaign, and I'm gonna convince all the other brilliant people like her. Listen, it's hard. It's hard to
Yeah.
put yourself out there, especially this day and age. We see right now with Attorney General Tong and the bomb threat he had at his home. I'll be honest, I had that happen to me.
Hmm.
Uh, Earlier this year, I want to say when we were having some issues with our schools and empty threats, but threats nonetheless.
Yeah.
Empty or not, tell that to your family, tell that to your children, tell that to your loved ones. So that's a very real barrier that some people have. It's how public facing we are in the social media age. But what I say to them, it's, well, why are you asking the question? Why are you interested in running for office? And let's get down to the very core of it. You want to help people. You want to help solve a certain problem. You have a solution to a problem. You have compassion you want to bring to an issue, or you have fiscal responsibility you want to bring to an issue. How important is that? And
Yeah.
then how important to you that your voice is heard? And you can draw that out of somebody. You can work, you can coach, you can make somebody better at the spots where they have opportunities to be a little bit better. I think this is for everybody. I think there's a
Yeah.
place in this for everybody. And it's important that everybody participates, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, no matter what your philosophies are. We need to have everybody's voices heard. That's what makes our country great. And that's what makes our political system the very best in the world. And we can't lose that.
Yeah. And I think it's also, when people get intimidated maybe by the factors of like notoriety and loss of privacy, is there are other roles to play in local government other than mayor or first selectman. There's, boards and stuff that also need people to be on that might not be as, you know,
100%.
fancy
As
or might not get in the paper as much, but is just as necessary for towns to function.
You have zoning boards of appeals, you have ethics boards, you have, ticket review boards, you have environmental commissions, you have a bunch of positions that aren't elected. And I say this every day to folks who either are very successful in life and say, well, why would I want to do that? To folks who just want to get involved in politics, but maybe don't want to run for
Yeah.
office. Reach out to your local parties, reach out to your municipalities, and say you're willing to serve on a board or a commission, because they're critical to the everyday workings of municipalities. We don't function without them. They're in our charters. Things have to go through them, and we need you. We need those volunteers. And test the waters. See if that's
Yeah.
something you want to do. Because while you may not be so public facing, you'll be around it. You'll be part of those conversations, part of that circle, where you can determine if you want to take that next step.
Excellent. When we were developing Representation Matters, it's aimed at communities of color, but it's open to everyone. But we geared it towards the communities of color who may not have had the same tools and resources in the past that white men had access to. Um, it doesn't mean there haven't been qualified folks from these communities. How much does the electorate have to change before we'll see real change in the offices?
I push back on anybody who thinks the electorate has to change,
Hmm.
because we've shown across the country where we'll vote for folks. I look at Danbury. I don't think I won in Danbury as a formerly undocumented immigrant, because the demographics have changed. Has the demographics changed? They absolutely have. They absolutely have. We're one of the most diverse cities. But when you start drilling down in the data and you look at municipal races, those demographics haven't really changed of the people who come
Yeah.
out to vote. So we win people over with our work ethic. We win people over with our message. We win people over with our work and how we deliver it. And it didn't matter what the makeup of the electorate was demographically for that, because it was the message that won. And we put in the work. What I've been big on saying, and I've said it over and over, the representation matters, is don't give up. I lost my first race. I won my second race. Then I ran for mayor. I lost that first race. I ran again for mayor and I won.
Yeah.
I was treasurer of the state party. I'm now the chairman of the state party. I don't do those things without the lessons I learned in losing,
Hmm.
and the observations you made on what you can do better. And it was the opportunity to show the community who I was, to show the folks who maybe were hesitant to vote, what I can bring to the table. table. So it's you have to be persistent, you have to persevere, and you have to learn from every situation you're in. So don't let the demographics bog you down because it's your message that matters.
Yeah. Um, in the future, we elected Barack Obama. Some people saw it as a sign that new world, anything can happen. But at this point, there's never been Latino or anyone, Brazilian, certainly.
Hmm.
Um, we can count on one hand how many people are mayors and first selectmen in the state of Connecticut, people of
Yeah.
color. Why is this process so slow? Why is progress so slow?
That's a great question. It's a deep question. I can't
Yeah,
speak for every community. I know some communities have had in the past. What I can say is we have wonderful candidates across the board who can do these things. I look at Congresswoman Hayes in the fifth congressional. Congresswoman Hayes as the first Black woman to hold that position, and then her opponent last time was George Logan, African American Latino, right?
yeah,
Mixed mixed heritage there for him,
yeah,
and nobody was saying, we weren't talking about what they look like. We were talking about their issues
yeah,
and what they stood for. And you see that more and more. You see Attorney General Tong as a first generation, naturalized citizen, his family, and what he's gone through. He's that Attorney General,
yeah,
firewall for us and the opportunities he's doing, the path he's blazing for so many. I look at the state legislature, so many people there. It's a matter of having more of these conversations to encourage people to run for office, to
hmm,
be in the room. I always say that change comes from the bottom up. I say that as I'm going around the state talking from a state party perspective. Everybody's looking at the Democrats at the top
yeah,
to deliver the message and be the leader in this turbulent time for them. And I'm telling them that, well, change derives from the bottom up, and we need our DTCs to be active. We need people to run for every position in the municipal campaign side of things. So what I urge anybody who sees himself as a mayor, sees himself as a state senator, or as a rep or a city council, to get involved now. And that's what I did.
yeah,
I was just active, and I was knocking doors for candidates, and then people were asking me to run for office. I never dreamed of being a mayor, never dreamed of being a city councilman, never dreamed of being the party chairman. These are situations that came based on opportunities I saw in front of me. But there's many people who are further ahead than I was in 2017 when I did this because they've wanted to. They've been thinking about
yeah.
this. They're trying to plan. Get involved now, right? And make yourself, if you think that you have the right plan to be a mayor, chief executive, or selectman of a town, start that process now. And don't be upset if it doesn't happen right away, right? Use
Yeah,
my
yeah.
story as an example, persevere and keep pushing.
Perseverance, try again, definitely. So we're talking about some kind of heavier topics, but do you get a sense when you're doing representations that some of the people there are having fun? Is it fun to be part of the process, having a seat at the table?
I love it. I do. I've found a home in politics,
Yeah,
and I enjoy it because this has been one of the most rewarding and fulfilling things I've ever done. And that's why there's stressful days, but then there's days where you really get to see why you do it. And on representation, here's one. There was a couple stressful days here,
hmm,
and then I had a situation, and I'll explain the situation in a second, over the weekend, where when it was done, I looked over to somebody close to me and said, you need moments like this because this right here, this is why I do this. This is why we do this.
yeah,
And there was a house fire here in Danbury on
hmm,
Saturday. It was a two apartment building, and most of the residents didn't speak English. The ones who did spoke very broken English. I got there, as I do if I'm around, on a call to support our emergency services, to let them know I'm there to check in on them, stay out of the way. I'll go to the incident command center and just kind of sit there and see how things are going, check in on folks if there's anything I can do, but also stay out of the way. When things were cleared up and it was time, folks were talking to the residents. The fire department here knows, hey, the mayor speaks Spanish and Portuguese.
yeah,
And the comfort that happens with these folks when I come in there as mayor, if they don't know who I am, explain to them who I am. And with this one, I sat there till the incident was completely done. And afterwards, I was there with the Red Cross, translating for the Red Cross for these residents. I was there afterwards, helping the homeowner who rented the property work with the agency that was going to come to board up the house so there was no problems overnight.
yeah,
I sat there there. I was grabbing stuff for folks to put, wet clothes in bags and try to salvage what they were. One gentleman lost a lot of his documentation, passports information for his home country, but had his things for here.
Hmm.
I was sitting there personally calling the consulate's office on a weekend because I know the consulate general,
Yeah.
asking her to be aware that this is going to happen Monday. And then the messages, because then I gave these folks my phone number to check in with me so I could check in on them. On Monday, I'm following up with them, and they couldn't believe that a mayor or a representative for their city government was so compassionate, caring, and I mean it. I am.
Yeah.
I just wanted to help them make sure they were okay. And the fact that I spoke their language and I looked like them, it went such a long way. And that's where that representation matters, right?
Yeah,
And you don't
definitely.
have to be like that to get there, but it helps. And in a diverse community like Danbury, or in your community, it doesn't have to be married. I would have done that if I was a city council person and I wasn't getting in the way. There's so many things we could do, and that's what makes it worth it. That's what makes it fulfilling for me.
Yeah.
And that's almost a tragic situation and a heavy situation. I'm not saying that's fun, because I don't get kicks out of that, but it's what fulfills me that I'm
Yeah.
able to help that way.
Yeah, that is really good. And growing up there, living there, being a real part of that community allows you to connect with the people, easier understand, what's going on in their lives, and in some cases, speak their language, literally.
Yep.
You are listening to the Municipal Voice on WNHH 103.5 FM.
¿Ha pensado en postularse para un cargo o formar parte de una junta local? CCM and the Campaign School of Yale están organizando Representation Matters, una sesión de capacitación virtual gratuita los días 1 y 8 de marzo. Para más información, regístrese en ccm-ct.org.
When we say representation matters, we mean that our government should look like the people that it services. Right now, our state struggles with seeing people of color in leadership positions. From local to state politics, our representatives are, unfortunately, at this point, overwhelmingly white. What does representative government look like? What does it mean to you?
Well, to me, it's being able to tell the story of your experience, and we've got to have that shared experience at the level of the folks who are making our laws, enforcing our laws, and defending our laws. And so that's where representation matters to me. My voice has to be represented from our life experiences, because that's how we move forward. That's how we make sure there's no injustices. How do we move away from biases, conscious or unconscious, is making sure the voice and the story is told. Again, and I think by being active and vocal and telling your story, that leads to the next position where people are saying, hey, you should run for office. That's what happened with me. And I'm not saying this is a blueprint for everybody in every city or in every town, because every town, every city is uniquely different. But for me, and for anybody here listening, it's representation matters can mean so many different things. But for one of it is make sure your voice is represented at Board of Education meetings, at city council meetings, at community meetings. As a mayor, I host town halls across the community. That's another place where representation matters, and people need to come out to represent their communities. And from there, I think it's just a natural progression. If you see injustices, or if you see lack of representation, where you can see that opportunity to run that for that particular office, because our politics should be just as diverse as our communities.
Yeah. As someone who holds a certain position of power in local government, how do you think we can get more individuals of color into public service? Do you think that
Outreach.
people need a push to run, or just the keys to making a successful run?
I think it's outreach. They need all of it. Some folks, I think, if we can find really bright opportunities in candidates that may not want to do it or see themselves, so they need that little push. You may see people who want to do it, but they're scared, so they need the keys and the tools for the success. Access to libraries of training. I know that CCM offers that the campaign school at Yale, the Democratic Party does. We have that for you. But what they need is mentorship. What folks need is trusted individuals that they know are there to help them, not to help themselves. And individuals you gotta make that assessment yourself. Does this person really want to help me, or is this person trying to help themselves? Like for me, I got involved and I got very lucky. I think in Danbury we have a great delegation. We had great folks, and I just was active supporting candidates, and people weren't scared to share their story and their knowledge with me, and they weren't looking over their shoulder thinking, "Oh, he's doing this because he wants to take my position." I think we get a
Yeah.
lot of that in politics across the country and the world, but we can't do that. We got to welcome sharing our knowledge, sharing our experiences to help people get that hand up in politics.
Yeah. We were talking before about how some people can be intimidated by certain aspects of the job, the publicity, the whatever. Um, what are some things that were hurdles for you personally before you started to run that you had to overcome?
That's a great question. Um, so the hurdles that I saw here was really the dynamics of politics in Danbury. We were overwhelmingly Republican city for a long time, and I was a Democrat. I am a Democrat. So it was getting that out there. And then Danbury is a city, but for a long time, I thought it was governed as a small town and it was very
Mhm.
parochial. So even within my own party, I think I wanted to get taken a little bit more serious. I didn't have a known last name where you go around, and I think this is common for anybody listening to this who's involved in politics. Each city or each town has certain families or certain
Yep.
ethnicities that, if my last name was Italian, I probably would have won my first
Yep.
race, my first mayoral race. And it wasn't. So that was a challenge. So then it was telling my story to the community that just because I may not be a fourth generation Danbarian or my last name is not Italian, there's nothing to be scared about because my values are the same. I went through
Yeah.
the same schools you did. My kids go to the same schools we all did. I drive the same roads. I've worked here my whole life. I married my high school sweetheart
Yeah.
from Danbury High School. So my hurdle in the beginning was just not being known and starting from scratch to get to a point where I could win a citywide race. And again, it's perseverance, but it was lucky enough to have a great team around me of leaders in the community who
Mhm.
guided me, politicians in office, former politicians, giving me all the tools I needed to really be successful.
Yeah. Have you felt as you've gone like welcome and camaraderie with some of the other leaders of your surrounding towns?
I have, and it's great. I'm very lucky here. I have Rudy Marconi in Richfield, who's been an incredible supporter of mine since my
Yeah, Rudy's
first.
great.
And but honestly, the person I talk to the most, and I would say have a genuine friendship with, is Dan Carter in Bethel.
Mhm.
And he's somebody from the other party. And I think Dan is a great guy. This is the example of what America needs to be. I love
Yeah.
being down with them. We'll joke around, call each other for things. I probably call him more than he calls me for advice because he was a state legislator as
Yeah.
well. I value that friendship, but we're both running municipalities where our job is to service everybody. I am the chairman of the Democratic Party. I believe Democrats are the party is the party that delivers for
Yeah.
our country and for the working family. But that doesn't change the fact that I'm friends with so many folks and cherish those friendships.
Yeah. And I at least have always found I thought local politics is where the parties really have to come together because you know schools have to be open, the roads have to be paved. Like
And what's the line, right? It's
yeah,
there's no Republican pothole or Democrat pothole. There's
exactly.
a pothole that needs to get fixed.
It's a little more on the ground sort of
Yeah.
issues a lot of the time. So, as you just mentioned, you are the Democratic chair,
Mhm.
and that Governor Lamont named you that. Well, that must be pretty cool.
Yes.
What was, first of all, that like, be named Democratic chair? And then, what do you see in the coming year as you are Democratic chair?
Yeah. So this is actually the second time they asked, and the first time I just didn't feel I was in a position to deliver because my private sector job had me traveling a lot.
Hmm.
I was I was a top flyer. I flew a lot. Delta knew me, and but now this time, while I'm still busy, I'm a mayor, and it's incredible. How lucky am I to be the mayor of the city I grew up in? I'm also a proud Democrat, and when the opportunity came, and I said, yes, I'd be willing to serve. I still have to go in front of the Democratic State Central Committee and
Hmm.
had to get a vote, and they voted unanimously to get me in. Um, what an honor!
Yeah,
I'm again 2017, I got my citizenship. It's 2025, and it's almost 8 years since that day. It's not quite 8 years yet.
yeah,
And in 8 years, city council, mayor, chairman of the party. And what an incredible journey and the
yeah. That's got to
opportunity
feel good.
it does. And what an incredible opportunity to share that story and talk about what that means across the state. But then also talk about on the political side, we won a seat here in Danbury for a position that was Republican for 22 years,
Yeah.
right? And it's nothing against anybody personally. It's just policy wise and direction. I think people did and solve problems with the challenges they were facing when they're here. I'm doing it from the perspective of a Democrat and the morals
Hmm.
I have now. On a statewide level, I think what the governor saw, we also have a friendship, is my business background and pragmatic leadership to
Hmm.
understand that for the state to move forward, we got to move forward together from a Democratic Party perspective on a national level. I feel that the Democrats, we talk about being the big tent party, but we need to show that we're the big tent party. And that's also by embracing folks who maybe have ideologies that are center right to us. Because if we want to win, we got to bring those folks back. We got to show business leaders that we're the party of responsibility for corporate governance as well, because we are.
Yeah.
We are the party that actually, supports public safety. When push comes to shove, we see it all the time in the state legislature. When it comes time to support our state police, it's the Democrats that are going out there. So I like to break those narratives, and I want to go out across the state and talk about that and galvanize and energize our bases to work. Connecticut, there is an election every year. Every November, there's an election. We should be working every year for that election. So if I can get around and galvanize, energize Democrats, have them work year round to get Democrats elected, good Democrats elected, to push our values, push our morals, to push our strong fiscal governance, because again, we
Hmm.
are the party of fiscal responsibility. We've shown time and time again. I'll debate that with anybody. When I had the opportunity to do that, I said, sign me up, I'm in.
Excellent. Now back to the mayor hat for a minute. One way we kind of like to wrap things up on the show usually is to talk about the future. And specifically, what makes you optimistic about the future of Danbury or Connecticut?
Yeah. Well, with Danbury, what I'll tell you is the opportunity that we've had to come in and start fixing a lot of the challenges. We inherited a city that was years behind on fiscal audits,
Hmm.
a city that's been on the MFAC review board, the OPM, the Municipal Finance Audit Committee.
Yeah.
We were able to get, two fiscal audits done in the 12-month period. We came in the 22 fiscal year audit
Hmm.
wasn't done, the 23 fiscal year audit wasn't done. We got those two done. We made a commitment to catch up by 25,
Hmm.
which we're on track to do. We've right-sized city government. I think they were the word efficiency in
Yeah.
corporate speak can be used to the point of inefficiency, and I think that here in Danbury we got to a point where we're being inefficient. We have been
We were just cut
underspent,
down too far.
cut down too far. Underspending, underinvesting is just as irresponsible as frivolous spending.
Yeah.
We had a finance team that hadn't been fully staffed in 11 years. Well, we fully staffed them, and what was the results? We getting audits done. We're getting work done. We're working on, right sizing our corporate, corporation counsel's office, because
Hmm.
we feel we're a little bit understaffed there. It's not just making, adding jobs. It's finding positions in places where maybe we are a little bit top heavy as well. We're looking at it all. So we've been able to bring that corporate mindset to city government, but also
Yeah.
keeping that passion and those morals of democratic values by investing in our schools. Because if you want to talk about an area where you get the highest ROI
Hmm.
in, right? And I mean, it's kids, it's education. We invest in our kids, we invest
Absolutely.
in education. That return on investment is there. And I hate talking about it as an ROI and through those terms, because these are people, but
Hmm.
it's incredible what the trade-off is with that and what happens when you don't invest in them.
Yeah.
So we've come in and done that. We're adding to public safety. In the year I've been here, we've hired and promoted over 24 police officers. I want to say we're close to 25 now.
Yeah.
Again, making our department look more like our city. Fires, adding a fire station that's been talked about for 30 years. So the future of Danbury is bright, and I hope I get the opportunity to do that for a few more years. From a state perspective, it's the same thing, but from the state party chairman, it's just
Yeah.
continuing to build on some of the successes that the Democrats have had for a long time, getting the right Democrats elected today.
Hmm.
We're recording today, but today there's a special election in Connecticut.
Hmm.
We have a state Senate seat and a House Rep seat. We have the Stratford area and the Groton area.
Hmm.
New London. So those are two seats we're keeping an eye on. I think one of them has been more historically Republican. One of them has gone back and forth. I think we got a chance in both. People are working hard, great candidates. And to be out there to spread the message, I think, again, these are turbulent times for a lot of people in our state. I was just at an event in Newtown the other day, Rock Democracy event.
Hmm.
and I spoke, and it was a great crowd. And I got stopped on the way out as I'd done speaking and got off stage. And the folks who stopped me the most were very open conservative Republicans who said, "Hey,
Hmm.
we're looking for a home. We want to find a reason for it to be the Democratic Party because we don't agree with what's going on, but we have real challenges with some of the things that we say are here." And I explained to them, "Well, we're about being the Big Ten, and the first thing that we have to agree on right now is that we're not going to agree all the time. You shouldn't agree with me 100% of the time, like I shouldn't agree with you 100%
Hmm.
of the time. But what you're going to get out of us is people who are going to disagree with respect, not trample your constitutional rights, and actually have civil conversations on how we move forward." And
Hmm.
one of them tapped me on the shoulder. He goes, "That's exactly what we need to hear." The other is like, "I want to hear more." I'm like, "Hey, well, let's talk more." But those are things I'm optimistic about. Those
Yeah.
conversations, people
Starting
coming
those
into,
dialogues, definitely.
yeah.
Um, so Representation Matters is going to be with the campaign school at Yale. It's free for people to sign up for. It's March 1st and 8th, and you're going to be presenting, I guess, on
Yeah.
the 8th, talking about Municipal Government 101 with Mayor Danielle Wong and everything.
Yep.
And what do you think you'll end up kind of covering in that?
Well, again, municipal government 101, it's very broad,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to talk about, what they can expect their first year because we came in and the proverbial drinking out of a fire hose. It's true. You
Yeah.
got a bunch of things coming in all directions. So we'll talk about, prioritizing and multitasking, but doing so efficiently, right? It's just being productive with what you have in front of you and then understanding that there's only 24 hours in a day. And even if
Mm-hmm.
you can get by on 5 hours, 4 hours of sleep, that's not sustainable. I'm one of those people, but every couple of weeks, I'll need a couple of weeks where I'm doing eight
Mm-hmm.
8 hours, just to understand that you can't finish every task every day, and it's okay.
Yeah.
But just jump on it the next morning. So just talking about your sanity and how you move forward.
Excellent. Well, Mayor, thank you so much for speaking with us today. We appreciate it and look forward to hearing more from you at Representation Matters.
My pleasure, and thank you again for having me for Representation Matters and for this. I think you can see how excited I am. I think it's a great program, and whatever I could ever do to help you guys in that, count on me.
We'd like to thank our guest, Mayor Roberto Alves. The Municipal Voice is a co-production by CCM and WNHH 103.5 FM. Joseph Thornton is our executive producer. Christopher Gilson is our producer. Harry Draws is on the boards, and I'm Matt Ford, your host. Be sure to check out our Facebook page and give us a like. And watch out for our CCM chat series on our YouTube page.
Are you interested in running for office or serving on a local board? Our voices need to be heard. CCM and the Campaign School at Yale are hosting Representation Matters, a free 2-day virtual training session March 1st and 8th. Register now